Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Kalika and you're gonna be a better person after watching this video. Whatever you say, Staff Sergeant. So I was on a deployment team with Staff Sergeant, Air Force, so the lowest NCO rank, as our team lead, and it was clear he was on a power trip. So we all have to go to this 2-week long training session prior to deployment, and someone from another base came with really bad bronchitis and got a bunch of people sick, including me and 2 other members of our team. This led to us missing a portion of the training. It wasn't any big deal to the instructors, but our lead, who will henceforth be referred to as Sergeant D-Head, decided it was. At the end of training, we had a week before we left, but we were stuck at the training base. We had a van and everything, so we could go off base as long as we had someone to bring it back, but Sergeant D-Head made it clear that no one on our team was going anywhere. This especially pissed me off because my parents lived nearby and wanted to come by before I deployed. Well, we also had a Chief Master Sergeant in training with us who was going to be on our direct chain of command when we got to our final destination, and that first afternoon he came into our barracks. "Hey OP, would you mind driving me and some of the Master Sergeants downtown for dinner?" If I was in a cartoon, a light bulb would have appeared over my head. I pointed over at Sergeant D-Head, who was laying on a bunk across from mine. "Sorry Chief, my lead said no one in our team is allowed to leave base." Sergeant D-Head went pale, and before the Chief could question it, he told me I could go. So I happily followed the Chief out and climbed into the driver's seat of the van, and on the way he asked me what that was all about. Me, being the good airman I was, didn't want to mislead someone so much higher ranking than me and told him the whole story. Roughly 5 minutes after I dropped him and the others off, I get a text notification. I get to a stoplight and find that I'd been added to a group text by Sergeant D-Head with all the other members of our team. "You can all go off base, just make sure to call and let me know everywhere you're going." I guess he just couldn't help being overly controlling. But orders are orders. First call, going to dinner at this restaurant. Second call, arrived at the restaurant waiting for a table. Third call, en route to table. Fourth call, I have to take a wee, en route to the bathroom. Fifth call, the wee turned into a poo, will advise when returning to table. Group text from Sergeant D-Head. "Curfew is at 2300 hours, only call me if you can't make that time." Whatever you say, Staff Sergeant. Well, if it's a mandatory meeting. I'm not sure if this is strictly appropriate for this sub, but there was definitely compliance and it probably felt malicious to the guy on the receiving end. TLDR at the end. Back in the mid-2000s, I worked as an engineer at a large technology company. The project I was on at the time involved several teams from different geographic regions. We were having significant design and integration issues that were threatening the schedule, so the higher-ups decided to have a one-day on-site meeting where they would fly in the key people from different teams, put them all in a room and thrash out the major issues and work out a path forward. Fine, part of the job. Now, I had a bit of a reputation as a crap kicker who didn't like meetings, which in fairness I kind of earned. But in this case, I thought the meeting was necessary and was planning to be on good behaviour. One of the managers in my team, who Mal called Bob after my late uncle, somehow got it into his head that I was going to skip the meeting, and he kept harassing me to make sure I understood it was mandatory and everybody had to attend. I found this a bit annoying, as I didn't see anyone else being singled out for that kind of empathetic reinforcement. Murphy being Murphy, about 3 AM the morning of the meeting day, my wife came down with an acute case of what I can only call idiopathic what the F syndrome, and I had to take her to the emergency room. We're there for a few hours while the doctors put her on synthetic opiate painkillers and work to get her rehydrated. As we approach 8 AM, she seems to be stable and I've got this mandatory meeting thing, so I head home, grab a shower and shave, and head into work. When I get there, I see Bob and sense opportunity. I go up to him and have the following conversation. "Sorry, I'm a bit strung out. I had to take my wife to the emergency room around 3 this morning." "Ouch, what's wrong with her?" "I don't know, she's still there." "Why are you here?" "Because you told me I had to be here." You could actually see the metaphorical knife insertion and twist in his facial expression. In my defense, I discussed the meeting with my wife before leaving. She agreed that I wasn't actually needed at the ER at that point and was the one who suggested I go. She got discharged around noon with a likely diagnosis of food poisoning. I left the meeting, picked her up and took the rest of the day off. The project eventually shipped, albeit well behind the original schedule. Bob and I talked a bit the next day. I gave him the rest of the context and we were fine. He was actually a really good manager and took the whole thing in good humour. TLDR. Work has a mandatory meeting. A manager goes out of his way to emphasise that I must be there. I go, even though my wife happens to be in the ER at the time. I tell the manager about this and he feels bad. I was told to stay in my lane, so now I get to come to the office and do almost nothing. A bit of backstory, I work at a studio which generally doesn't need super high-end computers for most of its employees. The exception to this being 2 of my colleagues and me because we work on game engines for in-house stuff and VR presentations. Most of the company's work doesn't rely on any real-time graphics, and we had to beg them to upgrade our system out of Windows 7 and workstation motherboards, mainly because game engines and VR hardware in particular have all but dropped support for Windows 7 and non-consumer level computer hardware. They decided to get new computers once and for all, built to our specs, just to shut us up once and for all. So last week, my computer starts crashing. It crashes when I start, crashes when I do anything, typically within 10 to 15 minutes of powering on. I raise an IT request for it, as is protocol. While the request is assigned, I do a few sanity checks of my own, just to be able to gain any additional information which could help them out. I figured that these are not workstation computers for which they have spare parts, and I should probably help them out because I was one of the people who badgered them into getting these machines for us in the first place. Almost immediately, I noticed that the CPU isn't being cooled, and I traced it back to either a faulty pump in the water cooling setup that we had, or a faulty seal around the pipe that goes to the pump. There was a leak, and all the liquid had evaporated or leaked away and dried. Now, I'm no expert on water cooling for PCs by any stretch, but it was quite clear that nothing was being cooled. So when the IT guy came by, I told him it was probably something to do with the water cooling pump, as the CPU is running really hot. IT guy tells me I shouldn't have been poking in there myself, but he appreciates the help nonetheless. He takes the computer and passes it off to his dumbass boss, DB from now, the person who checks faulty hardware before making a decision. DB is livid. He tells the first guy that what I told him is meaningless and to let the professionals handle it. Okay. DB comes to the same conclusion about the pump himself after wasting a day. It's after this that it all gets really weird. So, to ensure that I could continue my work, I get another computer assigned to me. It's one of the normal workstation PCs that they have, but I'm not really complaining, I get how it is. I start raising IT requests for software installation so that I can at least have everything that I know works on these machines and get some work done. Some of the software works and I'm able to continue my work, even though it's in a very limited capacity. 2 days passed like this and I never heard back from the IT about my computer. I asked DB about any progress and he informs me that they themselves didn't have any water cooling parts in the office, so they had to go to the vendor they bought the computer from for it, and that the vendor said it would take 3 to 4 weeks to procure said part. I was speechless. It was just a dumb water cooler. Even if they had to find a replacement, surely they could find a compatible replacement within days. At that moment, I thought maybe DB had asked for the exact model and make of the part, which may or may not be available, since these things go in and out of stock all the time. What followed was this exchange. We don't need the exact same model if that's what you've asked the vendor for. Anything compatible with the CPU should work, and we could probably get a new one faster. Who's the technician here? Don't lecture to me about compatibility. This isn't your personal computer, it's company property. The guy says 1 month. I can't not work for 1 month. We haven't closed your request. Go back and log your project time with the request ID. Leave the actual diagnostics and repairs to the actual technicians. Needless to say, I was pretty pissed at that, but I decided to follow his instructions to the letter. I have since started logging my time as system down with the request ID for my original ticket. I come into work, do what I can on this replacement computer, and I chill for the rest of the day. This is going to raise a lot of eyebrows when IT requests are tallied at the end of the month, and I'm looking forward to it. Till then, it's been 1 week, and I'm looking forward to 2 to 3 more of these. Or at least till DB decides to at least give my suggestion some thought, and not chase after the exact same part. TLDR. I was told to butt out of administrative decisions by an IT department technician, even though I had info they could use to fix my computer. Now it's taken them forever to get it fixed, and I get to do a whole lot of nothing till then as I wait. Edit. I think people are raising a valid point about getting all of this in writing, so here's my reply, originally to this person's comment. Logging with system down and request ID is accepted protocol in the company, and that automatically gets sent to my boss for approval. He has been approving it after a quick chat with me. Both me and the IT guy under DB have been logging this exchange under the original ticket that I had raised as well, so we should be good. Edit 2. I'll update this post when there's new stuff, though personally I don't expect anything super big to happen. Just the environment my company operates in. If something big does happen, I might make a new post, though personally I don't really like multi-parters. Don't want my help? Fine, be stuck in snow. This happened a few days ago. It was snowing heavily a few days prior to the day of the MaliciousCompliance, so there's a lot of snow. It didn't help that it rained that day, which made it even more getting stuck prone. I was going to attend an airsoft match nearby. The play area was deep in a forest and the roads weren't ploughed at all. There was one parking lot, if you can call it that, basically a mud field in the middle of the forest where people usually leave their car. Now, nobody showed up to the game due to the poor weather, so I decided to park my car, fire off a few clips of ammo and leave. I should also mention that there was a firing range for real guns right next to the airsoft place. I drove up to the edge of the lot, but before I stopped I realised I'd probably get stuck since the snow was quite heavy near the edges. I decided that since I was only going to be there for 5 or 10 minutes, I'd just leave my car at the entrance since there was no traffic or anything and I'd be right next to my car so I could move it if anyone came by. Q, old a-hole, who drives a massive pickup truck and is going to the shooting range next door. We'll call him Oway for short. I was firing off my gun next to my car when I heard an engine sound in the distance coming towards the lot. I quickly put the gun down in my car and packed my things so I could move out of the way of whoever was coming. As he turned the corner, he saw me and slowed down a little since I was kind of blocking the way. I waved my hand and smiled as if to say, "Sorry, just a moment," and climbed into the driver's seat and started up my car. While I was busy finding the key hold, Oway decided he's too busy to wait the 2 seconds it takes for my car to start up and decided to try and go past me at full speed, right into the thick snow. He probably thought his massive truck could save him, but no. He slowed to a crawl and eventually stopped, his gas pedal still depressed, digging him into an even bigger hole. In my mind, I thought, what an idiot, but decided to step out of my car and knock on his door. I asked him if he wanted me to push him out of the snow, to which he answered, "You're not going to move this thing anywhere, it weighs 3 tons, in the most unfriendly voice imaginable. He shouted at me, asking why I was parked in the middle of the parking lot entrance. I told him that I tried to park near the edge, but the snow was too thick there so I couldn't and I was only going to be there for 5 minutes. He's having none of it. Yells at me to move my car out of the way. Cue malicious compliance. I packed up my remaining things and moved my car out of the way. All the way to my home, about 5 kilometers away actually. He was stuck in the snow with no hope of getting out. Now, if this guy wasn't such a jerk, I would have gladly helped him out of it, even if it wasn't my fault. I could have easily pushed his car out of it, and also had a spade in my trunk, with which I could have dug the snow around his tires so he could get traction again. If he wasn't in such a rush that he had to take a shortcut while I was just about to move, he wouldn't have gotten stuck in the first place. Have fun in the snow, bitter old man. Okay, so that's all for r/malicious compliance. I really hope you did enjoy this one. As always, if you do want to see more content like this, then please do subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.